If you're a healthcare professional currently working in the NHS and you're wondering whether you can make it in private practice or open your own clinic, you're in the right place. I've just come off a call with someone who did just that. She left the NHS, started her own clinic 7 years ago. Every year she had amazing growth, 50% growth in revenue year on year. And now, 7 years later, she's on track for revenue of over £1 million with a net profit margin of over 50%. How did she do it? Well, I've just come off a call with her and she shares all her secrets. And make sure you watch all of it because in the middle, she just throws in her number one tip. Let's listen to the call. I'm really excited now to talk to Emma Kelliher. I met her very briefly to chat to at the British Association of Sclerotherapists last month. And Emma was one of these rare people who, when you meet them, you think, this is a very interesting person that I would like to talk to a bit longer. But the lunch break and the coffee breaks didn't really allow us to do that. And I think it was after my presentation on some of the business aspects of running a clinic that I got chatting to you. And I thought, hey, this is somebody who actually knows more than me in certain aspects of running a business. And your story, Emma, was very interesting, the brief amount that you told me. So thank you for agreeing to take part in this video recording today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're a nurse who've decided to leave the National Health Service, set up in private practice, and then eventually run a very successful clinic. Now, that journey, from my point of view, and I suspect to a lot of people, will be very interesting. There'll be people who are thinking of embarking on that sort of journey and would like to know how you did it. There'll be others who will be halfway along that journey and thinking, have I made the right decision? Should I turn around and go back to the NHS or should I press on? And there'll be others like myself who share certain parts of the journey and just interested to hear how you did it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Emma.
Yeah, sure. I am a nurse prescriber. I qualified 23 years ago and I did my initial 8 years in the NHS. I worked mainly in acute surgical, that type of A&E type posts. And I had quite a fantastic 8 years. You know, I was young, full of adrenaline, really enjoyed those posts. I was fortunate. I managed to work in Australia, Southern Ireland, and many of the NHS trusts around the UK. When I was 28, I was working in an acute surgical ward and I started to feel that the NHS was taking its toll on me. And I was getting quite a lot of stress that I wasn't necessarily feeling, but a lot of the situations I was in, I'm sure most people in the NHS would resonate with that. And one day I went into work and I left work after a particularly brutal 14-hour shift, and I don't remember my journey home. So I actually ended up in London, not Northamptonshire, and I just remember thinking something had gone in my mental health, and that was a big red flag. So I went in the next day and I handed in my notice. I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going, but I think I had an epiphany moment where I just thought, well, I've had a fab time, but now time is to sort of move on. So I went to work in a private hospital in Oxford in cosmetic surgery, and I absolutely just fell in love with the concept. But at that stage, bearing in mind this was quite some time ago, this was 17 years ago, the concept of cosmetic surgery and non-surgical medical treatments was quite novice. So I decided, I had no children, I had sort of limited kind of responsibilities, that I would go and base myself working in Harley Street, which is where it was all happening at that time. And I stayed there 12 years. And that's where I learned the trade, if you like, and everything that has kind of led me on to, you know, the next part of my journey, That's when fundamentally I really managed to establish the sort of expertise and experience.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that sort of brings me on to the next part of my journey. I think probably 8 years in to working at a big kind of commercial company, I started a family and I had three children very quickly. I had three under three because I had my first, and then shortly after followed twins, which was a surprise. So it then became a big challenge to go back to work, which I did return to my post both times. But that was a real challenge, balancing the sort of work life balance, all of the traveling, and going back to the children. And in somewhere in the middle of that, my marriage broke up. So again, that was a real difficult time for me, where quite quickly then I had to really assess what needed to happen for me to be able to sort of stay in the house, manage the children, and bring in the income. So I left my post and I started to see some clients from home. And still at this stage, medical aesthetics was really in its infancy. So, the clients were few and far between. I had a handful of really loyal patients that would come to see me. And sort of in that first sort of 1 to 2 years, it was really, really just about keeping sort of steady. But those handful of clients at that stage, they started to grow. And when I came up from the kind of ashes, if you like, and my mental health was starting to repair itself, I had the opportunity to reflect everything I knew from working in that big corporation company about how I could then start my own business and do this sort of entirely for myself. And that's when I started sort of making the decisions that then led on to me 7 years later having, a successful clinic, EK Clinic.
Wow, it's a great story. I mean, it sounds tremendously difficult what you've done. Really, I mean, you say you learned your trade, so you learnt your clinical skills, how to deliver the treatments, and you got very good at that over the course of 12 years.
Yes, absolutely. But not only the clinical skills, obviously, working for a commercial company, you also understand the business aspects of the
Right.
how to run that clinic, everything from sort of profit and loss to how to do stock takes, how to manage staff, how to manage teams, how to recruit, HR. I was the CQC registered manager of, you know, a few clinics at one stage, and also I was a nurse injector. So fundamentally, I had a really good balance of learning everything that I needed to know to bring me to onto my own business.
Right. So that was a good grounding, wasn't it, Emma? I mean, you were very fortunate to work in that sort of environment where you not only got the clinical education, but you got the business education.
Yes, I think that actually, on reflection, I probably stayed too long. I think that I didn't need to be there for 12 years to see, for everything that I'd learned. I could have learned that, probably the first few years would have been a good grounding for my own business. It was just at that stage, medical aesthetics was in its infancy, and most people were working for the bigger Harley Street companies and not for themselves.
So, would you say that the driver to work for yourself was really trying to balance your family life with your work life?
I had absolutely no choice. I couldn't go.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave the house anymore. I was captivated in the house by my three children because I had three under three and school runs to manage and all of the minutiae that you have to do as a mum. So I had absolutely no choice. I couldn't return to the NHS because I knew it'd be shift work, and I knew that my skills had a lot of value. But I guess the big challenging point for me was, but how do I translate that into my own business? Because whilst I had a handful of clients, how do I get that out there? And initially, at first, I had to do this from home, and that felt difficult for me because I felt that I wanted my patients to trust me working from home. Ultimately, I had to fit it around the children. And so one of the first decisions I'd made, that if I was going to see patients from home, then I wanted the clinic to be CQC registered with the Care Quality Commission. And I think that was quite that was not common at that point. It was
No.
probably one of the first home clinics to get CQC registration, but I felt that kind of validated everything that I wanted the process to be for the clients.
You didn't need to be CQC registered, did you?
No, I didn't need to be CQC registered, but I had the knowledge about what the CQC meant, and the CQC really is safety netting every single process in your organisation, every single thing that you do, the way that you kind of run your business, but also the way that you hold your medical notes, the way that you consult your clients, the way that you send them aftercare, just all those standard operating procedures were just
Yeah.
encapsulated in the CQC. And I just felt that this was a wonderful way for me to demonstrate to the clients that I was putting them first, and give them all those kind of tick boxes. Yeah.
Wow. That's quite an undertaking getting CQC registration. You've just sort of passed over it in a couple of sentences, but most clinicians would find that daunting.
Was daunting, and I I think what most people don't realize about the CQC is that the CQC, the process of getting CQC registration is huge, but actually maintaining your CQC is bigger, because you don't just get the registration and that's it. It's actually those things that then have to go on in your organization behind the scenes 24/7, and maintaining that registration, that's actually probably even harder work. And those are things
Yes.
that then I had to sort of keep doing, if you like. Yeah.
So you were a one-person band working from home and you got CQC registration. Wow. That's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah, it was the most important thing to me, I think, at that stage, because I was working from home and I needed to give the clients that trust.
Do you think that that clients or patients, you talk about them as clients, do you think your clients understand what CQC registration is? Do you think it's actually a good a good thing to have from that point of view, or was it mainly for yourself, do you think?
I think I do flip between clients and patients as well. So I tend to try to call them patients, but often do use clients. Um, I don't think they did so much years ago, but I think more and more, because of what's happening out there in the big wide world of medical aesthetics, that clients are starting to understand that there's certain things that they should be seeking in their injector or in a clinic. And that's just a big tick box for a patient if they're seeking a injector. If the CQC is there, they then can have that complete comfort that the whole processes behind the scenes have been assessed, validated, and that is ongoing.
Yes. Okay.
I think that
So
they're starting to understand more. Often, if a client doesn't, because I do tell all my clients, I'll often say it's a bit like Ofsted for schools, and then they get it. Yeah,
yes, I've used that term as well, Ofsted
yeah,
for schools.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you've left the NHS. You had a crisis moment that precipitated you to leave the NHS. You then went to work for a commercial company where you honed your clinical skills. You began to understand, and then eventually did understand, the running of a clinic. You had experience of CQC, being a CQC manager, and the CQ registration. You then, because of your family circumstances, you left that organization and set up at home and set up as a one-person business, CQC registration, principally as an injector. Is that correct, Emma?
Yes. So at that stage, I think I probably didn't have an understanding of how successful it would be. I think certainly at that point, I just needed a steady income, a better work-life balance. I needed to be there for the children, and at that stage, that felt enough. And
That,
actually, yeah, that felt wonderfully reassuring. And I was probably about 2 years in when I started to realise that the business was taking a sort of trajectory that I wasn't expecting. The growth was immense. My understanding is that aesthetic clinics generally grow around 12% per year, and that's in, there's lots of things that you'd assess there, such as sort of client database and obviously take-ins sort of, and your sort of your profit. But my business has grown around 50% per year at that stage, so I was doubling to some 60 to 70% some years.
wow. And why is that? What was the thing that drove your growth? Was
So
it okay?
I made some notes because I think that
Good.
I wanted to make sure that yeah, gave you the sort of like the reasons for that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me set the scene in terms of growth. I think there are only really two ways you can grow, or three ways perhaps. You can either get more clients, or you can charge them more for each treatment, or you can provide more services for each client.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
can you think of another way, Emma?
So the problem I had was that I was the brand. So
You were the
you know,
brand.
I was the brand. I was the one person that everybody wanted to see, and I was the only person. So I was becoming more and more exhausted by the business. So the clients were growing. So that was
Okay.
happening because that was word of mouth.
Word of
The
mouth.
because at this stage, actually, I had very little. My website wasn't really that good. Again, we're quite a few years back, so social media wasn't great. So it's very much word of mouth, and also the services I was offering were also growing. So I was seeing much growth. I had 12 years of training already, so there was already a lot I could bring to the table. But as the business grew, I could invest in more services, so I could bring the next service to the business, so I could buy the device or whatever I needed to do to embed that service into the business. So those were the two main growth channels at that stage, definitely.
So more clients, more services,
Yes. Yeah. So
and
those
you
were
did
definitely,
that, and you did that by word of mouth.
yeah. It was just happening. I wasn't necessarily engaging in the trying as such, but there was one big block to my business, that it was my availability, because I found I was talking patients out of treatments or postponing them so long that they would essentially maybe go seek elsewhere. So I started to realize that I needed more availability. I was still doing a little bit of bank shifts at my old job, um, where I could sort of pick and choose, if you like. And then I made a decision that I needed to be fully open, really, to allow the growth of the business. But I felt very nervous about that because I was worried about leaving my steady income, and I think I had about 2 weeks of fairly empty diaries, and then those diaries just started filling with the patients that I had on my database, then seeing that I was available. And actually, a lot of that coincided with bringing in an online booking system. That was one of the first things that I did, and that was one of the most successful things that I did for the business.
Okay, right. Well, sounds to me, Emma, that because you provided outstanding service, that's how you got word of mouth. So it wasn't. Yeah, I don't think it just happened because a lot of people in aesthetics, they don't have that problem so quickly that the business is growing 50% per year with no decent website, no social media, no advertising. You did it all really through word of mouth.
It was because I think I was unique in the business that I actually had the knowledge behind me. I think
Right.
that when patients come to see you and they understand, actually, I am speaking to a true expert, this person has really mastered their skill, that that was the main kind of reason that a client would refer me, because they say, do you know, I found this um, unique thing, which is I've been going to this clinic, that clinic, and feeling that not well looked after, that the practitioner didn't fully understand that those patients in terms of where they wanted to be and what their journey needed to look like, how to combine combination treatments. I had a good knowledge of the industry as well. And I was also very fair with the clients, because if I felt that I couldn't look after them because I didn't have that device, I would always tell them what device to go to seek. So there was a big trust there. Some of the patients that I would see would refer me because I'd rejected them, because I'd say you're not suitable. So they'd say, I've now sent my 3 friends because I've told them that you'll give us a kind of honest opinion. And these were generally women of my demographic, my age, and these were women and men sort of seeking rejuvenation, but in a natural way. And I think kind of understanding my target market was really important, because I think a lot of business owners in aesthetics don't really understand their target market. They're just putting out feelers, trying to get everything, but they're not really kind of saying what type of injector they are.
Good. So what is your target market, Emma?
So the one thing that I really disliked working in a commercial clinic was the cattle market approach, the way that clients would sort of come in and they'd all get the same treatment plan. The the signals from head office would be, get that client booked in again in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and sort of one size fits all. And you actually had targets for how much money those patients were spending. I felt really uncomfortable with all of that. I wanted to target women like myself. At that stage, I was not 40, but I was coming into my 40s. So 40s, 50s, 60s, and take them through that journey of aging together in a restorative and rejuvenated way, but sort of assess them at the time when I was seeing them and do the treatments that were right for them at that time, and not pre-plan their treatments too much, not tell them what they needed to book in 3 months, 6 months, because of course we wouldn't know, and just look after them as a whole person more so. So it was really about a different approach to it all, I guess.
So what is your approach now? Do you tend to see people regularly or as required, or do you keep in touch with them regularly some way by email or by text?
Yeah, so
How do you
we've got a huge database of clients. So we've got over 3,200 clients on our database. We've got our Brackley clinic, which is what we call kind of headquarters, if you like. And I have 2 satellite clinics. And what I mean by that is they are clinics within clinics. So they are established clinics that I am their injector. So when I've got historic patients. So in my historic patients, you've got many clients that will come to you fairly regularly, and they will book a consultation with you. We have 2 options on our booking system. So we've got a new client consultation, but we also have an existing client consultation. So we didn't want to just keep going after the new clients, because actually it's the clients that you have that are the most important. So patient retention was huge for us, that when we were designing our website, the website developer said many times, we need to bring in these new clients, and let's shout on our website, you can come for a consultation. And I said, no, that's not what I want. I want my existing clients to feel looked after, and I want my existing clients to feel that they're the most important thing. It's great when the new clients come, but it was very much for me, I suppose my target market was my existing clients and looking after the patients that I had, not the patients I didn't have, if you like.
Very good. Very good. How do you give that message on your website then? How can you give that message that you want your existing clients are the most important? You say that you didn't want your web developer to do that.
Yeah,
Shout for
well,
new ones.
we get new clients all the time, but it's just about understanding that when you have that new client, you have the opportunity to talk about their treatment journey. You have that opportunity to um, plan how things might look for them. You have some time where they have a bit of a cooling off period. You can give them the information that they need to make an informed choice, next steps. I didn't want that to be lost on my existing clients. I didn't want them to sort of fall into this ether of just coming regularly, but us not having the opportunity to keep having that chat, that new consultation, to sort of sit down with them again and say, how are things going? So, very much on our website, we do talk about a yearly review or a 6 month review and what the patient journey might look like.
Yes. Can I might just get your website up,
Yeah,
Emma. Would that be all right?
of course.
So it's ekclinic.co.uk, is it?
Yes, www.ekclinic.co.uk.
Right, let's have a look at your website then.
I'll talk a little bit about that kind of name actually while we're there.
Yeah, do.
I started, I think I made a mistake when I started. All good names seem to be gone. So I did what a lot of aesthetic practitioners do. I just called it EK Aesthetics. That was my initials, aesthetics. And you'll see a lot of practitioners do that. Then it occurred to me that as the business was growing and we went through the rebrand process of going from home to high street, that I didn't feel that aesthetics really encapsulated everything that we needed it to be. So we
Hmm.
decided to change to clinic. And then what did we do with that EK? Well, we could have completely changed the name to something clinic, but I really did feel that the expertise and knowledge that EK stands for was actually what I wanted to say to clients, that this is a safe place where you can go, where we have the true expertise and knowledge to look after you. So we slightly changed that, and that's where the EK kind of now stands.
You can see that now that your website looks really nice from the get go. Really. Um, okay, so we'll go to your homepage, and what we've got here is medically led safe clinic. You've got some ladies, and then you've got a man. So you're saying, for example, that you're treating both women and men.
I think that's
Uh,
really important to actually spell out that you treat men,
how
because
many men? What's the ratio? Would you say, Emma, men to women or women to
so
men?
our ratio is probably around 20% now. And my understanding in the industry is that's quite high, because some clinics won't have anywhere near that ratio, because then they're not really sending that signal that they can also treat the male population.
Yes. So what I like about your website is you say what you do straight at the top before the fold, as it were. You don't have to start scrolling down to see exactly what you do. You're a medically led aesthetic clinic. You help people gain confidence and you then welcome them. There's very little about you. You're talking about what you can do for your clients, which I like quite a lot. And then you've got a little bit about Meet the Team, which they can click on. And then you've got very prominently here that you're registered with the Care Quality Commission and why it's important, and they can learn more about that. And then you talk about the most popular treatments that you offer, brands we use. So those are some of the products that you supply in your clinic. And they can make a online booking, as you say. And you've got a blog. That's great. And then you've got the social media links. Again, you've got your care quality commission and you're a part of the ACE group. You've got your opening times. Do you encourage phone calls, Emma?
We do. The phone is continuously popping, and we also use WhatsApp, which works really, really well. So I think
Yeah,
you've kind of got to come at it from all angles, because ultimately the patient wants ease of communication, don't they?
they do. They do. No, I like your website. It's very nice indeed. And now, if I'm a returning patient or customer or client, explain to me where I would go.
So generally, you would go into the book now option, and then when you went
Right.
to the book now, you'd be rediverted to our booking system. There we go.
Yes.
And you would then get your options, and there's a new client face-to-face consultation or existing client consultation,
Right.
and then there's opportunity. The client can really have access to every single service that they want, everything from virtual call to a face-to-face. If they need a Botox adjustment, that's easy for them to book online.
Great. I really like that. And if I decide I want a virtual consultation, who would that be with?
Well, that was the other challenge for me, because as I say, I was the brand, and when the referrals word of mouth come through, it was obviously I want to see Emma. And I was in this early sort of transitional stage of recruiting my first team member. And this was actually before I went to the high street, because I knew that as we were growing, to satisfy this influx of clients, I needed to sort of start mentoring the next mini me, so that by the time they were ready, that because I knew it would take probably 2 years to fully mentor somebody, to get them to the same level of expertise and knowledge that I had. It was obviously more intense, that mentorship, because it was sort of very much one on one. But I needed to have my first team member at the same level as me as soon as those diaries opened. Else it wasn't going to be fair on the client, was it? I felt it was a bit like when you go to the hairdressers and they say, do you want the senior stylist or the the trainee? And you think, well, I just like a good haircut, actually.
Yes, yes.
So that's, but then the really important integral part of that was finding that next mini me, but also finding that person that would stay with me forever, because that's the hardest thing as a business, to find that team member and bring them into the business and not lose them, because you know team retention is, I think, the bones of most businesses, because especially in aesthetics, because the patients really get to want the same practitioner. So that's where my now clinic manager Tara came in. So I knew that I wanted to take someone from the NHS, because I felt it was a good way of helping somebody who was in the same sort of headspace as I was, leaving the NHS, to sort of have a better work-life balance financially and have more ownership of the way that they were working. So that was my sort of first team member. And Tara is, she is my right hand woman. And slowly we mentored Tara, and as Tara grew, I then needed to get my next team member, and that was Dr. Helen. And so it was always thinking about that next person behind, sort of learning the bones of the business first and the treatments, and then growing them into the more um, elaborate treatments, and but finding team members that I think would stay, because they wanted to be part of VK long term and what we were doing here. And yeah, we've managed that so far, so good. Yeah.
That's great. Now tell me, I'm trying to understand what you mean by mentoring. You say that you thought it might take a year or two to get a team member who would join your business and provide treatments to the standard that you do and who would understand the clinic. So, are you saying that you employed this person and trained them as you went along? Or are you
Yes, you have
saying you
to.
did?
Yeah, yeah. You have to take the hit financially because
Yes.
you're going to be paying that person at first, and they are your shadow. I mean, they have great uses, but initially they are shadowing you in clinic, and you're also trying to build that trust within the clients and the patients that this person is just as fantastic as me and has the same skills that I have. I've mentored them. They've been my shadow for sort of, 1, 2, 3 years. So now this person is at the same level. And that's the difficult stage at first. Finding that person that can be a mini you, so is on the same in the same headspace as you, because you've got to work with them really closely, and but finding somebody also that is in it for the right reasons, and I think that finding those team members is probably the challenge to any business and probably the biggest challenge to my growth.
You're assembling a good team was the main challenge to your growth. So, were
Yes,
these people you knew, or were these people you advertised for? Were they people that?
I've never
Uh,
advertised for staff until sort of recently when we took on our sort of front of house. What I did was have a radar out there all the time so that as I was meeting people out there, other medics, even looking at my current kind of patients, nurses and doctors that would come to see me, thinking about who would be the right fit for the business. And when I would see someone that I thought might be, I would then approach them, have a conversation. Things would fall through because you'd have a very good way of being very honest with people from the start about what you were looking for, and then they would be very honest with you. So I always said to those people, this isn't an interview. We're going to sit down together and work out if this is right for you and if this is right for me. And if we get to the end and like you think this is something that you might be interested in, let's try a few days in clinic. Come into clinic and see what you think, and then we can grow on that. And I think that we probably over the last sort of 2, 3 years, for people who have come into clinic and shadowed, it hasn't worked out because they've realised it's not right for them, and we've realised they're not right for us. Um, so we have a softer way of kind of recruiting because it's I think it's better long term for the business if you start off together with the right kind of reasons that you're doing that.
Great. Now, you are a trainer, aren't you, for some of the treatments that you offer? So, does this give you an opportunity to meet the people you think might be a good fit for your clinic?
Absolutely. So actually, I um, have obviously I've worked in the industry 17 years, and I did my um, level 3 teaching qualification I think about 6 years ago, because I wanted to continue, because within that commercial company I did train in house, and when I left that commercial company I felt a bit isolated because I was then just suddenly working for myself. So I decided to work for a commercial company once a week, cosmetic courses, and so that I would keep my skills up, so then I could disseminate that down to my team members, so that if I'm the trainer and the educator, then there's a lot of train the training, and I'm working with expert peers, and I can bring that back to my own clinic, but also keep
Yes.
my skill set up. And I think that's been really important. And
Yes.
having that teaching qualification has obviously helped me train my staff as well.
Great. Great. Are you still a trainer?
Yes, yeah. And I don't need to do that post, from a resource perspective, but I do it purely because I think it's really important for CPD. And
Yes.
there's no other way you know, if I can go into a training environment and just kind of have work with other expert peers at least once a week, I think that's huge for me in terms of my own sort of development, because just because you have as much knowledge as you do doesn't mean to say that you won't lose it if you don't keep things fresh. So,
Yes.
but to
Yes.
answer your question about a pool of recruitees or mentees, if you like. Um, so there's now a solid 5 of us within the business. So I employ 7, but that's sort of 5 full timers, if you like, and 2 part timers, because they have NHS roles, so they have dual roles. And actually, none of the team members have come from that avenue, but of course, always got my radar out there. And I guess even with, for example, my girls that still work in the NHS, it's about them having something for themselves, which helps them escape the NHS. They still love their jobs, but they again, at some stage, may want to make the transition fully over as well. And I'll help them make that transition if that's what they want to do.
Great. That's very generous of you, really, to share that knowledge. Not a lot of people would do that.
I feel that this industry is very cloak and dagger, and I feel there's a lot of big heads out there, some really
Egos.
nice,
A lot of egos.
yeah, there's a lot of egos, and I don't think there's um, a fire in me to have an ego, to be out there, neon lights. I have more of a fire to create a beautiful clinic where my team members have what I have, a better work-life balance, and our clients feel really well looked after. And I think if you can get those 2 things right, that you can look after your patients, your clients, and you can get the team correct, I think you're on a really good trajectory for more growth.
Are you still growing?
Yes, and we're growing. The main growth to the business really is the team, because I guess my biggest fear would be that I would get that wrong, and I would like to replicate what we have in our Brackley headquarters in another town. But my biggest fear is that if I don't get the right team prepared for that, then that's going to not be as successful as the Brackley Clinic, because this is just such a safe space for everybody. And there are so many ways to grow, and the obvious way would be to replicate another clinic, but there's still so much growth going on within the clinic itself, because our client database is continuing to grow. We're looking at our next team member already, so that next kind of mini me again starting to come into the business. We've got some wonderful linchpins now in the clinic. We've got a wonderful kind of office manager, and we've just brought in somebody to support her so that she has some more headspace. So yeah, the growth is extraordinary, really. But at the minute, I have quite a tight control over that. And I guess that's the challenge. I'm sure a business mentor would tell me to let go, but that's the hard bit.
Do you have your own business mentor?
No, not officially. Um, I have an unofficial business mentor, somebody that has given us a lot of advice, sort of a family friend, if you like. And I think the biggest impact that that person had on us, because I have a partner, and whilst he's not obviously on the business as a director, he's heavily involved in the business, and he's here a lot helping me and the team. But that sort of unofficial mentor, if you like, really was the catalyst for us coming to the high street, because that was a big block for me, feeling that could I do that? Could I take it from home to high street? I was really fearful that my patients wouldn't follow me, that they wouldn't feel that that's what it was all about. But actually, coming to the high street has been, hugely impactful on the business, because it means that we've now got a 5-room clinic where this is our forever home, because the clinic has established itself um, with owning the building. So it means that the patients, I think, feel a safety that we're here for the long run as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's very inspiring. It must be for people, for practitioners who are thinking of leaving the NHS and setting up their own business, whether it be an aesthetic clinic like yours or another business. What advice would you give then?
I think, firstly, you have to look at your personality type. I think that lots of people think that this is an easy way out of the NHS, and it's absolutely not. I mean, in many ways, it's a complete career change. Really, you have some skills that you will bring forward, but you have to be extremely hardworking, focused, driven. You have to be very. You have to have some business mindedness, and I think the personality of some people, when I train people, I can see certain people that I know will be successful just by looking at their personality type. And I think that's the first thing. Look at your personality type and ask yourself, are you able for this? The second thing I would say is you can start to grow your kind of patient list a little bit more holistically at first. So you're going to have 2 jobs at first, and it's going to be an expensive hobby at first, because you'll be sort of running this kind of sidelines of patients that um, are you're having to reinvest into the business all the time, so it can be quite costly at first. And don't expect it to just sort of land on your lap. And I think that was probably the failure of most people who are trying to get into the private, that they have unrealistic expectations of how quickly it will grow. They don't really understand that it takes time. And there's some really good experienced people out there that are offering private work, but so many of them don't understand their profit margins. I think I find that actually mind blowing, how many people I meet out there that are offering a service and they're probably making a loss on that service, because they think it's as simple as the product and what the patient pays them, and they don't think about all the other costs of the business. And then obviously, as you grow and you start to get that steady kind of database, then you need to start thinking about your social media and your website, because those word of mouth patients are going to need a landing page to go and check you out. So it's very well having a referral, but the first person, that person will want to think, oh, I'd like to go just read about them a little bit. And if you haven't got some sort of resource where they can do that, like a website or a sort of social media, then the patient may just not take that next step, because they don't feel there's that sort of like that trust there.
Well, I think you've summed it up in a nutshell, really. I think next year, Emma, you need to give a talk to the BAS.
I think sometimes I struggle. There's always a lot whirling through my brain, so I give a lot of information sort of very quickly. And I guess that would be the one thing that I see, which is what you were essentially saying at the conference, was we've sort of picked up on the same point, really. How do they transition? Because they've got that little kind of sideline of private patients, but how do they make that next step? And the problem with when you're working in the NHS is you're not used to asking for payment for a service. So I think if somebody is in that position, I think that the ideal situation would be that they would seek some mentorship or something with somebody that can just help them structure it and structure that transition over, and get those kind of key kind of linchpins in place where they can start to build on that kind of solid grounding for a business. Because what you don't want to do is be 2, 3 years into what you consider private work to suddenly realize that you've structured everything incorrectly and you've got business made of sand. You don't have an actual business at all. You're just a busy fool.
Yes. No, I think what I've gained from you is that uh, you were very obviously very good at what you did because you learnt your aesthetic skills and you perfected them over a long period. So you were very skilled at what you did. That was a given. You also got early exposure to the business aspects by working for a commercial company. So you understood how a business ran and you got some experience of CQC registration. So you understood profit and loss, you understood the machinery of a business. But what's also clear to me is that you had a vision.
Yes.
You
Yes.
you want you knew how you wanted your clinic to run. You knew it was not going to be solely profit driven. It was about your clients and providing a good service. And you wanted to demonstrate that with CQC registration. Even though that wasn't required, and even though it required extra work on your part, and even though at the time it perhaps didn't have the impact factor for your clients as being a great marketing seal of approval, you chose to go for CQC registration. So you clearly had a vision and you weren't driven by money, because what surprised you early on in your practice, in your clinic, was the amount of success and how quickly it grew.
Mhm.
And you were shocked by that, which again suggests to me that you weren't seeking to develop an empire or have a great uh, reputation and an ego. You just wanted to do a good thing for your clients, and you wanted to make sure they were well looked after. And that then drove your business growth because it was word of mouth. People were telling their friends. You didn't have a website, you didn't have a social media presence, but you were getting clients and referrals because you were treating people well and you were listening to them, understanding their issues. You made them feel special in a way that other clinics didn't. They didn't feel they were just being sold something off the peg. You were taking the time to understand your niche and understand your target audience and provide them with something of value to them, the transformation that they wanted. And then uniquely, you understood about profit and so forth. So you weren't a busy fool just providing something that was marginal. And also, the thing about CQC registration that you perhaps didn't realize, and maybe you did, I don't know, is that by having all these standard operating procedures, these policies and procedures and protocols, you were able then subsequently to scale. You were then able to
Yeah.
take people on. You
Yes.
call it mentoring, but
Yes.
others might just call them, employing people and developing them. Uh, by getting them to, you call it a mini me, but you had your standing operating procedures that people had to follow, and that you could delegate efficiently and effectively and grow those people and teach them, and they could acquire the skills. So I think there's a lot of things and of course your website now is fantastic. I mean, I would advise people to go and have a look at it.
Yeah, I
um,
think that you've summed that up so beautifully, and I think the only thing that I think I would sort of add to that, or kind of sort of say again, is that the whole thing about EK is about the patients, but also my team, because
your team.
they are the linchpins of all of this, and it was kind of pointless in me having all of the success um, and then just being employed by the business. Okay, there's so much we do within the business, or I do within the business, to make sure that they are on that same journey of success that I am, so that they will always be, you know, part of EK, because their personal growth is very, very important. Um, they're kind of, they're professional, but these are professional women that have complete ownership of their own diaries. I employ them, but if they want a day off, they close their diary. If they want to go home early, they shorten their diary. If they want to go on holiday, it's not me about approving annual leave. It's about giving them the power back in their lives to go to their son's play or um, the sports day. And then that's why the NHS is bleeding staff, because people feel completely and utterly slaves to the NHS, and they don't have the ability to have a work life balance. So, in all of that, it's about letting the team have their own ownership of themselves and come into the clinic and have a fantastic day, but also have the ability to create a work-life balance for themselves. And if I brought any of my team on camera, I'd hope that they would say that.
Well, I'm sure they would, Emma, because from what you say, you value your team, you nurture them, you give them autonomy, and you give them respect. And I suspect they pay that back to you in shed loads, bucket
Yes,
loads.
yeah, absolutely.
Good. I think you're a good leader as well as a good business person. Maybe they're the same thing, I don't know. Emma, it's a delight to talk to you. I knew you'd be interesting to talk to.
Well, I hope, if anything, I think that the reasons I wanted to do with this with you personally were really to just inspire other um, people like me who are there in the early days, trying to make those next steps and not really understanding how to do that. And for me, I just want people to have some more understanding of how to get there and how to get that success, and share that really. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to share that with you.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure to listen to you. It's very, very gratifying. Tell me, do you provide mentoring services
Yes,
to
we do.
people? Yeah,
Yes.
you
So
do. And
at the yeah.
is that on your website? Is that something you offered?
So
Or is it a,
at the minute on the website is the prescribers mentorship, so the V300. So that's for
yes,
um, mainly nursing wanting to do their prescribers. But now, in terms of business mentorship, that's definitely something now that will be something that I will develop, working with certain people on a one-to-one basis and looking at their business. I did a lot of that in COVID actually, when we all had a bit more time, and that was wonderful. And that is definitely something for me that I'm really passionate about.
great. Are you on LinkedIn? Or are
Yes,
you
I'm on
on,
LinkedIn. Obviously, we're on socials as EK Clinic. We've got our website. Um, all forms of contact are absolutely fine.
right. Well, I'll put links in the description box below. And anybody who's interested in being mentored by you, they can contact you. I suspect your time is very limited, but the right
Well, I
person
think
could
I
certainly
think
benefit.
that's what it is. The right person, having a chat with that person, seeing what we might both gain from it. Because
Great.
I think there's certain types of people that are ready for mentorship, and
Yes.
there's people that maybe aren't at that right stage in their journey. So it's about that kind of preliminary understanding of what that person might want. So yeah,
Great. Emma, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'll put the links in the description box below, and I look forward to hearing about your next project and what you're doing
wonderful.
next.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.